found the GroomPod. Welcome to our virtual salon. My name is Susie, and I'm your host. I'm a mobile groomer from Seattle, Washington, and anybody who knows me will tell you I love to talk, especially about my job. And one of my favorite people to talk to is my friend and mentor and the co-star of this show, the curator of ingredients, Miss Barbara Bird.
Hey, Susie, so happy to be here. Boy, I'm so sorry for your being snowed in. I think it's just prison-like, I'm sure. Thank God you have a big house.
It's true. It's not huge, but I also have some property. So I could go pace around outside, go to the barn, spend time with the horse. I've got things to do, but I think my husband at about a week in is like, this would be more fun if you didn't pace around the house all day. Yes, I know. Alas, welcome to episode 438 of the GroomPod. This is the highlight of my week. Now I know how you feel. Today is February 9th, 2025 in snowy Snohomish, Washington, and Greenville, South Carolina. This podcast is brought to you by our kind sponsors, Best Shot Show Season, Precision Sharp, Groomer, and Stasco. And if you guys would like to support the show, you can do so at our website, thegroompod.com, where you can find the donation button that you can do a one-time donation at, and usually send that right to Barbara. Or you can join us on Patreon for a monthly subscription and really support the show. This week, we're going to talk about scheduling when you're the only person at your shop and anesthetic-free dentals. This week, What's New is brought to you by Groomore Software. If you haven't found Groomore, you're missing out. Groomore is an all-in-one software solution for your grooming business. Whether you are a solo mobile groomer or manage several shops, Groomore has everything you need. 24-hour online booking and forms, routing, credit card processing, reminders, Google Calendar and QuickBooks integration, and so much more. And the best customer service anywhere. Shop, mobile, or house call, Groomore has you covered. And they're giving us a free month. Just enter GroomPod22 in the coupon code. All right, Barbara. I'm so excited to tell you about this. If I can find the right annoying button to push. You know I love those. Okay, I've got something to tell you. I got the Le Pooch brush.
Oh, yeah?
Oh my goodness, it is not anything like it used to be. It's so stiff it hardly flexes. The points are icky poo-poo doo-doo sharp. It's beautifully built, and hooray, it didn't come in a huge plastic container like they used to send it. At least it was in cardboard, but I don't like it at all. I mean, it's awful. So as a result, I've put every possible coated pin slicker into my Amazon shopping cart. And I'm going to read every review and see if I can't find a brush to make myself happy that I've lost this. I mean, completely different animal than their original Le Pooch brush. I'm so sad because I also know that the other flexible brushes that are out there, they look all the same. So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a call out here on the podcast to all of you. If anyone uses a decent, flexible slicker, tiny, small, one single head, flexible slicker that isn't built with razor sharp pins and that actually flexes, please let me know on the discussion group. I'm so disappointed.
So when you say flex, I understand that you're thinking the whole brush head needs to be flexible. I spotted one of those the other day and looked at it myself, and I thought of you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where was it?
That was on Amazon, of course. I'm stuck there because it works so well for me. I bought a carpet cleaner and they delivered it overnight.
That's amazing.
Are you going to send it back?
I'm thinking about it. I hate it. I can't believe how stiff it is. Here's the thing that I don't know. Is it because mine was 20 years old that it was so flexible? But I'm not remembering that. I never remembered it not being nice and flexible. This thing might as well be plastic. Oh, wait, it is plastic, but it's got a rubber mat on top of it. The other one was constructed much differently, and I suppose that was its weakness. Maybe it would have lasted longer than 20 years.
Apparently, you took care of that brush
Yeah.
because most groomers I know would have beat the hell out of that way before 20 years. I want somebody to come up with a sustainable brush head cover. Sustainable, I mean not plastic.
I would love that.
Chris Christensen might have that, something for their brush.
You know what he has that I love is the brush. I love my brush.
My brush got left in Tucson.
Alas, I am not seeing one. A lot of brushes.
Yeah, I thought they had some kind of a special ultra brush that had a case or a cover that came with it, but maybe not.
Well, the one that I'm most curious about is the Artero flexible head slicker brush because they do seem to put out a really good quality product. I don't think it's coated pins. That's the bummer. You know, there must be a reason they don't do coated pins on the flexible slickers. Maybe it's just a popularity thing. Not as popular.
I don't know.
But I was bummed. But it gives me something to shop about.
Yeah.
So you put on the discussion group a really cool, brilliant video. And I wanted to talk about it because that was really cool. How did you stumble across that guy? It's a guy, right?
It's a guy. He's from China. I don't know anything else about him. There's no English on it. It's all just this guy grooming a dog and music. And he is such a, well, first of all, he's a very stylistic Asian guy. I mean, he is so today, right?
Yeah, right.
He's just like so good looking and he dresses fantastic. I mean, the video that I sent to the pod, he was in a denim outfit. You should see him in studded black leather. He's really a rock star groomer. And it's fascinating. He's also a scissor hands.
Yeah.
He just does things with his scissoring and he scissors a lot of his work with a long bladed, like 9-inch straight shear.
Now, the fascinating thing, the thing that's getting the most discussion today on the group is that he's doing this on a dirty dog.
I know, and at first I got a little upset about that. My intention was to see him actually like a performer and what he put into his presence. He glammed out in a very unique way. He looked like a top name hair beautician stylist at a ultra special high level trade show doing a demo on a stage with loud music drawing everybody's attention to his little neck of the trade show floor. One of the shows that I went to, they had one setup where they had 3 men stylists on 3 chairs at once on a stage, each with their own attitude and their own style, and the loud music bringing everybody to the circus. It was just so awesome. I mean, it was visually stimulating as well as educational, and that's how I found this guy. I love the way he dressed. I love the way he can demo across the back of the dog so you can see him scissoring the other side. So put himself together.
What I liked best, which was really fantastic, because normally I can't see this stuff so well because I am not a sculptor and I'm not artistic in that way, is the way he did the front and the back of the back leg with the angulation, where he didn't move the angle of the scissors at all. He did the knee And then he just lifted the scissors up and did the butt, and they were exactly parallel. So amazing. And I so admire that skill. That skill level is fantastic. But as a person who can't scissor very well, I often do a better job on an unprepped dog myself.
Well, it's not so soft.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Young men like him, they don't ever have to buy a pair of scissors. They're just gifted back and forth. And he apparently has a school and his logo is up above his head. And you don't have to worry about your scissors dulling from working on an unwashed coat. And the dogs are not filthy.
If you look at the back of that dog, he had pee all over the inside of its legs. He just went right over it, and the dog just looked fantastic. I mean, what skill. I wish I could do that. I can't do that.
I know.
And what a cute head. What a cute, stylish, interesting, different take on a Bichon head.
I did that kind of a head for the last couple of years that I was grooming, only I like to take the beard a little shorter than he did, because that also gives a very saucy little look, a less droopy, beardy kind of thing. So I did that. I think that there's a place for grooming before the scissoring. The thing of it is, you would really have to do it again.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
You would really have to go over the whole thing with thinners, and he doesn't show doing that on the body at all.
Right.
But he does show it just on the head.
This brings me a great idea, Barbara. Can you see the light bulb above my head? Or is it just the glow from the sunshine outside? I think, since you're not actually grooming physically every day like you've always groomed, I think Saturday you should go out and find a cool video that you would like to share and we could talk about for your What's New.
Oh, okay.
I'm putting this out here,
Okay.
right? I didn't warn Barbara. Usually I warn her about these things.
I didn't get a negative reaction that was the first time I ever posted a reel on our website, and I like sharing it something that way, in that form. So I would love to, but I tell you, I'll have to definitely look for certain things, because my favorites, the ones that I hit follow, it's not just dog grooming, but it's horses.
Well, I get that.
It's gay stand-up comedians I love.
Okay, well, let's make the assignment this. When you stumble across something that you want to put up and share, do it, and then we'll talk about it on the show. And then we can share it with our listeners. And it's a little more interactive and visual, and I think it would be fun. And that way, it's not an assignment that you have to go out and look for something. Because I don't want to put more work on you.
I think I just told you that I watched a barber giving a special style to a woman. It was white hair on the ends and it was pink at the roots. And it was so cool and so cute. I would post that. I love to watch male hairdressers and female barbers. And, I love to watch other people work with scissors and clippers. And I think there's a lot to be gained by doing that. So I'll broaden it to that. And
Perfect.
Then try to stay out of the gay comedy.
Okay, you can stay out of the gay comedy, but I wouldn't boot out a horse grooming picture now and again.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Like I've been sending you.
Yes. All right. I think that sounds like a great idea. Well, now that I've shared my biggest disappointment of the week, the other thing I've been doing is staying home and playing in the snow because I can't get my new pickup truck out. It doesn't like to go up in the hills in the rain, which in the Pacific Northwest is a little bit of a challenge because it's only two-wheel drive. And it has a long wheelbase, but I have had to back off of hills so that I could let the cars go by. I have to plan ahead next time, but oftentimes this stuff catches us by surprise because we really didn't get a lot in the lowlands, but up at my house I still have 3 inches of melting snow. It's crazy. So I think what I'll do next time we get a worrisome snow report is I will hook up the Explorer, because I can get the Explorer out a lot easier than I can the pickup truck. And I just didn't think ahead. This is the first snow I've had to deal with the pickup truck in, and lesson learned, moving on.
Failure. Failure. It made me feel safe in the snow.
So now I've created a scheduling nightmare, which brings us to our first appointment. But first, we are going to hear from our sponsors. Let me tell you about Best Shot's newest addition to the Ultramax Pro line. Ultramax Hair Hold is a flexible hairspray that can be layered on for a stronger hold. Ultramax Hair Hold spray is great, but my favorite new product is called the Max, and I won't groom without it. It's a fragrance-free, ultra-concentrate conditioner and detangler. It reduces drying time and handles undercoat and tangles like magic. Just a few drops in the final rinse or spray it on and dry it in. Contact your favorite Best Shot distributor or learn more online at bestshotpet.com. Grooming success begins with Best Shot in your tub. Made from the best stuff on earth. Ready, groomers? Here comes our first appointment. Short of technical problems, I think my biggest personal challenge isn't the multi-syllable words that you bring to the table when you talk about your shampoo ingredients.
Polysyllabic.
Polysyllabic words that Barbara brings to the table. It is our listeners' names, because I can butcher a name better than I think anybody else on the internet. So here we go. Carrie Hoon, or Hune, depending on how you pronounce it, asked a question about scheduling in the ironic moment that I'm having to look at rescheduling the whole entire week last week. She said, "Can we talk scheduling strategies in this group?" Background: my mom and I started out in our own shop together in 2012. The last 4 or 5 years, my mom has eased into retirement, and now I groom solo. Questions: what are your favorite ways to set up a day of grooming? Start with one and stagger, block, and add a few in the morning and finish them off and have a few more later? Any other schematics that have worked for you as a solo groomer? She says, "I'd like to prevent days that get away from me." Wouldn't we all? That results in a dog that seems to hang out all day, or days that break my body from having 12 hours on my feet with no breaks. Days like that don't look much different than days that run smoothly on the calendar. That's a fact. You look at a day, it looks like it's going to be okay, and then you find yourself 3/4 in and buried. I hate that. So I'm trying to streamline and make it more productive. She says, and this is my favorite part of her question, "I'm grateful for any advice or ideas from this friendly group." And we do have a pretty friendly group. I'm proud of all our listeners. You guys are nice to each other. You play by the rules for the most part. Occasionally we get somebody that slips in, but I get them out really quickly. But I want to thank you guys for being awesome that way. Mostly you groomed by yourself in the end. Well, no, you had a bather.
50 years of doing it. I really worked with a bather more than I worked by myself.
I've never had a bather. That would be nice. Short of when I trained someone for a very brief period of time, she bathed the dogs I finished.
It's a mixed blessing, especially the trained from scratch bathers that I've had. It's really hard. It's easier to take somebody that has some experience and then finesse them. Although bathing is sort of like housekeeping, because everybody assumes that they know how to do it.
It's true.
It's really a specialized skill set that you need to have to be a good bather or dog prep tech. Dog prep tech is what I would call it today.
For me, I've never had a bather, like I just said. I have very scant experience grooming with another groomer. I have mostly been a solo groomer. I'm coming up on 19 years in the trailer, and then before that, I was primarily a solo groomer at different vet hospitals. So I've not really experienced, oh, and I did in-home by myself. I've not really had a lot of other people in my space because I personally get easily distracted by someone else. I become the entertainer. I start performing. I do less grooming, more talking. I've always been that person. I cannot refrain from disturbing others. So then it becomes less productive for the person in the room with me as well as for myself. I've learned to adjust by not hiring someone, not working in a place where others are, and protecting myself from all of those nice, shiny things. I thought about all the different ways that I have tried to set up my days in the past. And I figured there's 3 basic ones. And so I thought we'd kind of go over those. The first one is the all in, all out method. So you take all of the dogs in the morning, then you work on them at your leisure during the day. And then at the end of the day, when everybody's finished, you call and have them picked up. Or you can call during the day when they're done and have people pick them up. So have you ever done anything kind of like that?
Yes, a kennel where I learned to groom for 4 years was run like that. Everybody in by 9 and out at 4. That was, I mean, there wasn't any variation, except every now and then there was somebody that had to have a fast time.
Right. You can add that into your schedule if you've got enough other groomers or people around that you can support that. But that's a hard ask when you're doing the all in the morning and all in the afternoon. The convenient thing about it is if you're your own receptionist, then you're theoretically only dealing with a bunch of intake all at once before you start getting into your grooms. So with some of these other methods, you're grooming throughout the day. You have to choose whether or not to answer the phone. You have to ring people out, that kind of thing. Maybe it's a little easier now with some of the software that you can send people an invoice and they can check out before they ever get to your shop. Then maybe you only just have to tell them what went on during the groom, hand them their dog and their cookie and piece of candy or whatever and say thanks, take your tip. I don't know. I've not had that experience once again because I've only worked by myself. But I think it's really easy and possibly the easiest to get overwhelmed with that kind of a schedule. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that it doesn't leave very much room for shit to happen. So if you don't have any control of when the dog is done, you can run into trouble at the end of the line because somebody in the morning took way too much time for any number of reasons. And that's where I would get thrown off and buried. But I actually groomed most of the time. Well, what I ended up with is like a 2 or 3 part day that I would schedule. At first, the first thing that I did is I did get them in the morning and out by 1. And then you'd have some that come in around 1 and out by 5. So I did a lot of that, and that seemed to be a pretty efficient and an effective way. Just letting people come in and out and in and out is such a waste of time. And you end up easily distracted. So they can work out different ways. You can end up with some dog on the table or in the tub when somebody else comes in. And then what do? Or it reduces the control over the time you have to talk to the customer. And if they come in when you're finishing the head, for example, oh man, I hate that. I hate that. I had the idea that if you came in, if I'm running late, that's on me. But if you come early because you were in the neighborhood and the dog sees you and I'm working on the head that you like to have just right, that's a stressful moment for me. Finally, I just made the rule up, you come early, your dog is done. As soon as your dog sees you, they're done, however it is.
Also, when you're working by yourself, you're often in the entryway with your grooming. You're right there. People walk in and you're right up front. And it makes it difficult if you're working on other dogs and then the person comes in, you've got to put the dog down, like you were saying. There's nothing worse than being the client and coming in the door and feeling the stress in the environment.
I mean, yeah, right. Feeling that you're thinking, oh shit, and believe
Yeah,
me, people can feel it.
they do.
They can feel it in the air that you are not happy to see them.
Or that something's going horribly wrong in the back.
That's bad customer relations right there. I used to have a little chair up front, and they could sort of slouch down in there and look at their phone. Especially, I had a rule: don't talk, don't say a word.
Yes, it's especially bad if they talk.
That's how your dog verifies that it's you. I don't know what they see when they look at ordinary white lady that owns me. but as soon as they hear your voice and your tone, they know for sure is that my mom? Maybe that's my mom. I think my mom might be here. And then she said, well, Barbara, what do you think about me? And the dog.
I suspect that they smell us when we come into the waiting room, although it's a banquet of smells for them in a grooming shop. I mean, talk about pea mail and whatever else, every dog that's ever walked through there or touched the table in an unusual spot. They've got a plethora of smells. And then all of a sudden, the familiar smell comes in. But they can't verify it till they hear the voice. And the minute they hear the voice, that dog is a wiggle worm and you're never going to get it finished. I don't like that either. And I think that the batch grooming, like you were talking about, I did that for many years at the vet hospital. And I worked that out after a few years of struggling with the receptionist not knowing what dogs take how long to groom. Just because it's a big gigantic lab doesn't mean it's going to take longer than a tiny Shih Tzu, because the chances are the Shih Tzu haircut might take longer. And the receptionists never really know that unless they're groomers. So I worked out the block system or the group system, just like you were saying. And I did I think it was a 9 to 6 facility. And I had 3 dogs come in at 9, 3 dogs come in at 1:30, and 3 dogs come in at 3 o'clock. And it managed to give me some flexibility in when I sent them home, because I just called when they were done and I never gave anybody a time. And it also let me do batch grooming, meaning I was able to bathe the dog, blow the water off, put it in a cage, bathe dog number 2, blow the water off, put it in a cage, either bathe the 3rd dog or finish dry the 1st, depending on what kind of a dog it is. But that way I could more efficiently use the time as the dogs were in. That worked okay. I mean, I actually found that pretty good. The difficult part about that, though, is dealing with the checkouts and the people showing up and trying to keep your flow going. Works really good in the morning because nobody shows up early. But once 1:30 hits and the 1:30 and the 3:30 dogs are coming in, then there's some overlap of the people going home and the dogs coming in and timing things. But if you get them to come within a half an hour, you can eat lunch while they're coming in and out or things like that. I like that way to work. I found it really easy to do that. The other thing, like you were saying, if you get backed up or you become late or the disaster happens, you have the ability to cancel one of the later dogs that isn't there yet and tell them what's happening. And people are so happy to have the option to not leave their dog there to sit in a cage.
Yeah, some of the most unhappy clients were dogs who didn't get groomed, but were there for hours and hours.
And I would hate it.
It was really hard to deal with that, because people think you can just work to fit everything in. But you can't. Some things happen that take a lot of time for you to deal with, like diarrhea all over the floor or something like that. Don't schedule yourself too tight. You got to schedule yourself with a little bit of room for shit to happen. Please, because that's what makes for groomer burnout.
Yes.
You don't have any room for the unexpected. And if you don't have that in your day, it's gonna fuck with you.
Yeah, why make it harder than you need to? If you're working for yourself, the chances are strong you're the boss. And you can adjust these things to make it more comfortable. So it certainly sounds like Carrie's got that situation. So let's talk about the third way to groom, which is really how I do it as a mobile groomer, which is by appointment, usually one pet at a time. And I like that. But there's a big caveat to that. I can only do 3 to 5 dogs in a day comfortably without killing myself. And therefore, those dogs have to bring in more money. So you have to charge for this type of a service. If you are a one-on-one groomer, you make sure that you are charging a little bit more for your time than a groomer who's able to do some batch grooming, some rotation grooming.
On the other hand, if you're got a bather, you have to pay the bather as well as get your cut. One of the troubles in our industry is groomers don't know how to value their work because we came from these cottage industry backdrop. Our history is that a cottage industry where, it would be with your unmarried middle-aged aunt would do.
Very true. Well, I always thought, and you can tell me if this is true or not, because I've never been able to do it. The way that you operate a salon when you have a bather, you're making up the difference by volume of dogs rather than having to charge more like you would in an individual one-on-one express type grooming. I mean, theoretically, not in your case because you were just trying to facilitate your ability to groom, but if you're an able-bodied person, if you're adding a bather, you would be adding that bather because you have volume to add the bather. And I think that people kind of miss that sometimes. How do you feel about that? Am I right?
Yeah, there's always the pressure of volume, regardless of your model, because we just don't charge what we need. We just don't. And we think we have a professional working model, but we just don't allow ourselves. It's not like a barber who does a haircut in less than 30 minutes. Like we have to go through a fairly long process to get the results that we want. So there's always this time versus money. Like if I give myself enough time, then I'm not going to make enough money. I don't know. I guess that was my experience. I never quite got the ratio on top of it so that it really worked for me. And as a result, I couldn't pay my employees as well, and I cheated on my taxes, and
Okay, I'm not going to harp on this, but the basis for any business model where you're paying employees is to make sure you've done the math. So you're right. You're absolutely right. You've got to do the math. You've got to know whether you can afford to have a bather, whether you have the volume. Anyway, I digress as we take a right turn over into whether you can afford to have a bather or not and how to deal with that, which I can only talk about it in theoretical sense because I've not had a bather. I want to talk, though, real briefly of how I'm going to reschedule a week's worth of grooming on a month that I don't have any wiggle room. And it can be challenging. I'm getting pretty good at it, though, because we have surprise snowstorms where, like right now, a 1/4 mile up my driveway is a road I can drive on, but I cannot get to it. Can't get out my dang driveway. I could pay someone to plow it, but it's just grooming appointments. I can manage, right? I'll put them in somewhere else. So what I do as far as when the snow happens is I call everybody day by day. I don't call like a bunch of days in advance because I'm not so sure it's not going to rain and melt off or something like that. And I do always call and have a physical conversation with them. I try to text some people, but I don't think that they really read the text sometimes. So I find a physical phone call is helpful. I let them know I will reschedule when I can actually leave the driveway, which is the case I'm at now. People could drive here without any problem and walk in through the snow, but I still can't drag my trailer out through this. after I can actually get out, when I can escape, which I'm hoping will be tomorrow morning. I'm really hoping it's going to be tomorrow morning. I'm going to go out there and try to shovel some holes in there so I can get up to the road. Then I will start with the first day that I canceled and take a look at where I can put them. And I start like back to front and I go that way. I want to make sure that the people who've waited the longest get the first appointments. But I also have to consider some of my 3-dog houses are very difficult to fit on one day. That's a lot of dogs in one stop. So sometimes I'll have to do those. I got to look at my schedule, know your audience, who's willing to wait, who's not. But I'll start rescheduling and I will send out reminder texts to everybody through the system that I have, which is Groomore, our sponsor, Groomore software, which I love. And you just have to fit everybody in. I'll work an extra dog in every day so that I can get him taken care of. I have a couple days off. I'll fill those. It's only days off. I can do without a couple days off. It's fine. It's just temporary. I don't ever try to look out and see how many days I have to work consecutively because I don't like to see that. Instead, I just fill them as I need to. It's only a month because next month gets a full reset because most of my appointments are pre-booked. So that's the other thing. If I find that somebody is going to get their appointment really close or past the 2-week mark, then I will tell them they need to wait till the next grooming appointment in the cycle. Nobody is ever so long that they can't manage a few extra weeks in their grooming appointment because I'm very lucky in that my appointments are wonderful. The biggest thing is how not to miss people. I did miss calling someone. And the way I do it is when I call them to tell them their appointment is canceled, I change their appointment in Groomore. This is specifically for people who are using Groomore, and I know a lot of our people do. I switch it to confirmed so it doesn't send out any reminders. Then when I rebook them, I set it to unconfirmed so that they get the messages. Those are my rescheduling tips. And let's take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk an unusual topic for us, teeth cleaning without anesthetic.
Show Season has a great enzymatic cleaner called Kennel Fresh. And you dilute it with warm water and it smells good, and then it evaporates to be a deodorant. As the Kennel Fresh dries, it's enzymatic, it eats the bacteria and the odor source. So it's really good stuff. You can use it indoors or out.
Find it at your local distributors or showseasongrooming.com.
The GroomPod and Precision Sharp would like to invite you to check out the newest precise cut shear called Lynx. Its patented design features a thumb ring that slides the length of the handle for perfect ergonomic placement of your thumb. Slide it, lock it into place, and get your best grooms on. Check it out at precisionsharp.com. Groomers, take your seats. It's time for B-Bird's Classroom. Mari Kusanagi asked if there was an episode on anesthetic-free teeth cleaning, and I said I didn't have any experience with it. And then Barbara reminded me that we've been doing this so long that we have talked about anesthetic-free teeth cleaning, but it's been a while. So tell me about your experiences because I'm kind of in the dark.
You know, I had forgotten all about it too, until this post came up and I said, oh, I do have experience with this. It was a short experience, but nonetheless, I gave it a try. So we're talking probably somewhere mid to late 80s. And I had been in business for going on 10 years and kind of had my confidence and everything was going all right, but I wanted to explore the possibility of cleaning dogs' teeth without anesthesia as an add-on or a special service
Right.
that I could provide. There was a video out. I bought this video from a woman who demoed how to do it, and you bought their kit, and I thought, okay, I can do this. And I did a couple of dogs and it went okay. Although, you know, I would now, looking back, question that you can't do as thorough a job as the dentist does. it was okay. It was enough for me to go ahead with the project. And I put an ad in a little newspaper that was distributed up the street at a major grocery store. And I took a little ad there and I said, like anesthetic free teeth cleaning, call for an estimate or something like that. And, I did get some calls, but I also got a very threatening letter from the Arizona State Department of Veterinarians.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they threatened to bust me. They threatened me with police action.
Oh.
They said I couldn't do that. They had just passed a new law. Because of me, they passed this law that said that veterinary services included teeth cleaning and it was their domain. And so it was practicing veterinary medicine without a license.
Oops.
Because they got freaked out because of course, dentists, it's one of their main funds, their main fund stream, money stream is doggy dentals. And for the same reason that I decided I would try to do it, I was being very holistic at that time. And I sold health food. I did alternatives to pesticides. I did have a whole kind of holistic dog grooming thing in the mid 80s before it was even noticeable. And they followed it up with a phone call where they told me to stop or else. And I said, okay, well, I don't have to go ahead. Gotcha. Thanks for the warning. And I stopped doing it. And they said, we may possibly send someone to call you for this service to see if you're still offering it.
Uh-oh.
They told me what they were going to do, and I forgot about it. And this old woman called me with a 14-year-old Yorkie that had bad teeth and needed some work done, but she couldn't allow it to be anesthetized. And I said, well, I'm not doing it anymore. And she begged and all of this and said I was the only person she could turn to and, like that kind of shit.
Wow.
I just eat up. And so I said, okay, I'll do it. And I made an appointment, and the next day the state called me and said, gotcha.
Wow, that's dirty pool.
So I told them that was a setup, and I would never have offered to do that if she hadn't have begged so much for me to please make an exception and just take care of her. I forget what the name of the dog was. But I also wanted to tell people that it was not a good experience with the dogs. Their behavior was more troublesome with being in their mouth and scraping on their teeth than I thought it would be. And it took a lot of strength for me to do it. And because they were tending to not go along well with the operation without anesthesia, you couldn't predict when that head was going to jerk. And one time I had made a mistake and I apparently hit a dog's nerve, and I was unable to do anything to that dog forever and ever and ever.
Tooth pain is the worst.
It was a deal breaker right there, and no apology on my part. There was no way I could get the dog over that. They didn't want to have anything to do with me anymore, and I lost the customer because of that. And when a dog doesn't want to come into your place, it's horribly hard.
Yes. I don't do any toothbrushing, I will inspect teeth and let the owner know if there's something going on. But the way I feel about it is if you are not really well trained, if you don't have x-ray ability, if you don't have a completely cooperative dog, you're not doing a whole lot of good for that dog. Toothbrushing at a grooming appointment that happens once a month does nothing for the dog. It does absolutely nothing for the dog. You have to toothbrush at home. If the owners aren't toothbrushing at home, you're basically taking their money. And I don't like doing that. I know that's a fine business model for people, but I don't like doing it.
I did that. I did the just brushing for a number of years, $5. And I finally just felt too guilty, to be honest with you.
I understand it doesn't work for me. I can't do that to my people.
People just wanted to ride home with the dog with fresh breath. And that's about all they would get out of it.
So as a person who's worked in the vet hospital and helped with dental scaling and things like that, I also know that if you remove all the tartar, you need to polish the teeth. And if you don't, it's not really getting the whole job done. And getting the dog cooperative enough to chip the plaque off is one thing, but then being able to go in and properly polish or find and diagnose and not touch problem areas. We don't have that kind of knowledge. I really don't think it's a good idea. But I will say this, as you were discussing this, I realized I do have a little bit of experience, but it's not traditional kind of dental scaling. When my diabetic cat was diagnosed as having diabetes, he was 7 or 8 years old, and it was time for a dental. So I did a full blood work beforehand, and that's how we found the diabetes. But his teeth were nasty. He had bad pH in his mouth, and he had a lot of tartar. So he was a compliant cat. So we took him back into the treatment room, and we used our fingernail, and we chipped off the tartar off the cat's teeth. Now, it's not a traditional way to get the tartar off, but if you've got a cat that cannot go under anesthetic, you might be able to get a little of that. Of course, you risk a bacterial infection if some of that gets swallowed and there's an issue, pre-existing issue that you don't know about. But really, go in there with your fingernail, chip some of that stuff off the back molars of the cats, especially with the cats, and try to get their teeth in a little bit better shape that way. Of course, if you're seeing red lines against the gums, it's already too late and you really do need to pay for an actual dental. But sometimes you can just chip some of that tartar off. That's what those bones do, and those chewies that are supposed to help. They're enzymatic, but they also are supposed to physically chip some of that tartar off. I don't find them very effective, though. But anyway, that's that.
That's that. That's my story. I've been there, done that, tried it, quit.
Yeah.
Threatened by law enforcement, and I retired.
I like to stay in my lane. My lane is cosmetic. I'm not diagnosing skin problems. I am no longer doing anal glands unless I've been requested by the vet to do the anal glands. And it would have to be a vet that knows me, that knows I was a tech and can do them safely. But I prefer not to do them at all because we were probably doing them too much. They probably didn't need to be done as much as we were doing. Ear cleaning, I'm also leaning towards less is more. I only get in there when they're really yucky, and if they need to be cleaned out, I will pull a little bit of ear hair, but I don't do what I used to do, which was remove every hair from the dog's ears. So we're learning and evolving, and that's the point of the GroomPod, is that we're never stagnant. We are always learning and changing and growing as groomers, as people. And I hope you guys take that all to heart and are doing it as well. Thank you very much for all of your support on Patreon. We really couldn't do it without you guys. It's kind of expensive to do the hosting and some of the software that we use. But because we have you guys on Patreon, we're able to do it. The donation button, Barbara can always use some donations. She'll just buy cool grooming stuff and talk about it on the show. So it's really a good way to spend your money. I actually promote it. And most importantly, support our sponsors because they really do handle the bulk of the cost for the podcast. And I'm grateful for them. And happy grooming, everyone. See you next time on the GroomPod. Bye-bye now.
Take care of yourselves because we love you.